Good morning. Today is Monday. Today is Monday, the 17th of August, 2020. I'll repeat that. Monday, the 17th of August, 2020. The time now is about 2:30 a.m. in the morning. We're down in North London somewhere. See the gobs? I just went and bought myself a drink. And funny enough, the young lad came up to me and asked me for some money to buy a burger. So that shows that we're going back to a little bit of normal. But let me just tell you a little bit about the temperature today and the climatic condition. So it's around 2 a.m. in the morning. It's been raining, I think, for a few hours because I've been inside. I haven't been checking the weather. So it's damp at the moment. It feels damp. It smells damp. Temperature, if you could see the vapor, it's probably around 15 degrees. 15 degrees. There's a slight wind. So it's about 15 degrees. It's damp because it's raining. And today, during the day, I was out and about, so it was mainly overcast. It had some light showers, but in the evening, it had heavier rain, especially in my area, or especially in this area. These are the buses here at night, and so that's the climatic condition. Like I said, I came out, as you see the globes, and the youth asked me for some money to buy a burger. So that tells me that there are people back out on the streets now who are in kind of desperate needs. But where we are at the moment is very interesting. I think it's on a knife edge. Well, definitely the virus has changed space-time. The virus has changed the space-time continuum forever. Let me just check, we're still recording. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, the virus has changed the space-time continuum forever. And so it looks like we're not going back to how it was, or we cannot go back to how it was. We cannot go back how it was because there is lots of businesses that's gone out of business. There's lots of industries, especially the entertainment and leisure, which I'm in, which is definitely not functioning at the moment, and some of those people will go out of business, or will give up, will throw the towel in. And in a couple of weeks' time, it will be September the 1st, and the government is starting to take away its subsidy to businesses and to individuals. Also, the major thing is that it wants everybody to go back to school, and that is a major thing. Also, there's a lot of people There's a lot of people who don't want to go back to work or don't want to go back to the office because of they're scared of the virus. They're scared to come into the cities, scared to come into offices. Scared to come into offices. This is London town. This is North London town. It is exciting, night and day. Yeah, so people are frightened to go back into the office because in the city there's lots of people and people mingle. And one of the things about the virus and one of the things the government tells us to do is don't mingle with people, don't go where there's groups of people, keep our distances away from people. Don't even go and see. In the UK we've got this thing, they call it the bubble. So if these people are part of your bubble, then you can meet and socialize with them. But if they're outside of your bubble, it's not advisable for you to socialize or meet those people. So you've been told not to socialize, not to meet people, not to be in places with people. It's mandated that we wear a mask on London transport or public transport. It's mandated, not so much, but the gloves, but mainly the mask and keeping your distance. So the government on one hand has done a great job. By the way, talking about the cars in the background, if you look at the webcasts from this location, you will notice that the tire noise is actually much louder, probably because the roads are wet, and it is a completely different sound. And I could hear that it's going to make a big difference to the sound on camera. So maybe just the dampness of the road and the dampness of the air, it does make a lot of difference for those of you who really specialize in how these intricacies affect each other. But back to people going back to work. So there are some people who at home they're more efficient. They don't have to travel 2 hours, let's say 2 and 4 hours a day, 2 hours to work, 2 hours back, and they don't have to, the money they save on the fare, the money they save during lunch when they go out, or during tea time when they go out, or even when they reach work early and you got to rush to that coffee shop, Motte, Laka, whatever it is, you collect one of those. What's that? About a $5, or £5 in the UK, $5 in the US, and a donut, a bun, or what have you. So you save on that. You save on the lunch if you go at lunchtime. So people are finding it, if they can work at home, then it's better to work at home, and then plus they got their family around them. They can take a break, go out in the garden, walk outside, like I'm taking a break right now. I'm outside taking a break from what I normally do. So once I go inside, then I've gone into the routine of business. So there's that new realization or that new psychology that people have realized, but the government did say if you can work at home, and people are liking working at home. So and plus there's the fear factor as well. So there's economical, there's social, there's a fear factor, but the space-time continuum has changed. We're really now on a new trajectory. The people who within the next month or 2 months, uh, the government subsidy stops. The government have taken people off the streets, and they're just going to chuck them back out on the street again. The moratorium in America and the moratorium in Britain is that they will stop you being evicted. They'll stop you being evicted for not paying your rent. In the UK, that is going to be lifted next week. Next week or the week after. In America, I think it's already started. I haven't checked up on what the situation is in America, but in the UK, they will be lifting that moratorium of people not being evicted. This thing about the rent or the rent and the mortgage furlough or not paying it for a while, you'll now have to pay. But you still have what you haven't paid. There's still a debt, and now you have to pay that. You know, the companies here in the UK are now every day are sacking people because they need to reduce the amount of people because there is a reduced income. Because if you're in the leisure and shop selling things in shops and what have you, then the amount of people you have through your shop is actually less because you have to keep the distance. You may have to open for a longer time, but you still won't make the money you still won't be able to make the money like you used to, but if you're lucky, you just about make the money to pay the bills, but you probably wouldn't make the money to pay the bills that when you were shut for those 2-3 months. So the space-time continuum has changed. We are on a new trajectory. We have more people unemployed. We have professional people unemployed. I don't see where jobs can be made. Because the whole economy is based on consumerism. Whether it's government consumerism, military consumerism, we need more guns, we need more planes. Whether it's personal consumerism, oh, I need a new jacket, I need a new shoe, I need a new furniture. It's all based on that. And I think some people have learned during this lockdown, they don't need those stuff. They are fundamental and basic things which are more important. But the topic of the day, what's riding high in the UK at the moment, is this thing about the education, the A-level education. Now, let me turn over to this fox over there, if I can. Alright, you can see that fox over there in the bin. So this is London town. This is a fox scavenging there. Let me. Yeah. Oh, it's gone across the road. Wow, there's two of them. Yeah. Yeah. So as you see, this is city life. There's a fox over there tearing into that bin. And so while there is the day, get myself in there, make sure this doesn't fall down. That's the city fox there doing its thing. There was another one across the road. So the biggest thing in London at the moment, England is about, as let's say the UK, is that the results from the A level, and I never realized how life changing those results are. In my day, I didn't really rely on my qualifications so much. Can you see the foxes run off? Get down the road. I'm gonna go back to my normal view. Alright, if we can try and get our normal view back. Yeah, how about that? I hope it's normal. Yeah. So that was a bit of nightlife there. That's the Fox. So it's about 2 a.m. in the morning, North London. Yeah, so the biggest thing that's happening at the moment is about the education system and how devastating it is that a lot of people, well, the kids them, let me just check we're still recording. Yeah, we are. Yeah, that the kids they were downgraded on their exam results, so they can't go to the universities that they want to, and they can't go on certain courses, and certain jobs that was offered is now being retracted. And there's two strands out of that for me. One is actually the government might have to make amends, as they call it, a U-turn on how they worked out to grade people. Because of the virus, people was not sitting in, they did not do exams, so they couldn't sit in the same place and do the exam. So there is one almighty big controversy at the moment. It looks like the government is in a mess. It looks like there isn't any policy. So what might happen, they might have to change, how the results, or they have to come up with something new. But what is fascinating with that is that when I left school and I went to college, and after college I could have gone to university, but okay, let's say, yeah, I got what I needed to go to college, and some of these kids haven't got the grades to go to college, to study whatever course. All right, okay, so I managed to get through. But then when I got to college, I did the first year, and I left it and decided to go. I decided to go find out what life is all about. Well, left. To be honest with you, I left home and I was out there. Survival 101. Hello life. And so I left college home, and I went out and found out what the world was all about. I got jobs, I got place to stay. It was rough in the beginning, but then I never gave up on education. Every now and then I would go to a certain course or class, but that was before they started charging for education. At that time, education was free. And this is another example of the Americanization of the UK. So we started paying for education, I think from the year 2000. So that's like about 20 years now. So back then, education was free, so I would go to classes and courses to keep up to date. And the last one I went to was to get my computer maintenance and building qualification. In fact, I knew much more than the tutor. I knew much more than the tutor was teaching the course. Well, there's various tutors, but one of the main tutor, the head of the class, the main class tutor, I knew more about. He was just a general tutor. The others were specific in different things. And the strange thing, I had my nephew in the same course that I was actually studying on. So there was an uncle and a nephew. And funny enough, we both had the same initials, you know. So kind of strange, but kind of unique. And so I got my full qualification in building, maintaining computers that I didn't do like 20 years before. So education was never a problem to me. And even to get a degree, there's such a thing called an open university degree where you could do part-time. This is for mature students. There's a thing called mature students education. And so I can't see why some of those young folks and the parents are so distraught that the marks they got have such a blight on their life, and probably many reasons, but one of the reasons would be is that they've been told so much by the system that this is the way you have to do things, that they cannot see any other way, right? And that's the only path, and you know it is blocked, and you know they just don't know what to do, you know. But also in that system and how they marked and how they show the grading, it is institutionally racist. It's institutionally classist. If you come from a underprivileged area in school, you are marked down lower. If you come from a privileged aspect, you're marked higher, right? Now that's what they're telling everybody. So now you know, intertwined in that is the racist element. So they knock you down even lower, and we know that as black folks, you know. So that is one of the things that's happening. But what is interesting is the institutional aspects of the educational system. You know, the classist, the racist. You're judged by your tutors, and of course, if your tutor has a predisposition because he's educated by the system that black folks ain't gonna do well, because he's always told that black folks ain't gonna do well, then he will continue that through in how he treats you, like the police force, like any of the other educational system, you know. That will continue through, and it still continues today. And the Black Lives Matter protests, and the George Floyd protest, and our friend from who was in Hackney, who was driving through from Harlesden, RMP from Harlesden, Dawn Butler, you know, got stopped by the police, and you know, this institutional thing goes on. So that's the enforcement of the law, the educational system. So when you say institutional, the educational system, the legal system is all geared against us. So add to that, and we have people actually bawling out that, you know, how they were scored is really, really bad and thing, now just add the racism thing to it. So yeah, but in general, there's many ways of getting your education. I think even today, there's Open University, there's online courses. Didn't the President of America, wasn't he involved in one of these internet online universities? So there's many ways. But one of the reasons why people are so distraught is because they've been told and they believe that's the only way and that's the only path. And so there's a massive distress. So the government might change. I talk about the youth I saw earlier on who was asking me for money. So the policy on that might change, or they might double down. It might actually get tough. They might. So if you're on the class, how low can you go if you're an underclass, And it's on the charities, it's on the goodness of other people that you don't sink any lower. It's not really government policy when you actually in the underclass or on the streets, or it is charities, and it's the goodness and it's the time spent by good people trying to help you, not by government. Government would just keep on putting the pressure on. And it comes to that second interesting fact from what I've learned from the current educational system and how they manage to score people. They use this word inflation. Now, when I use that word inflation and the meaning of it, it depends on, do you know what it means? Do you know how it works? In fact, that is what to me is the underlying economic situation that keeps us all as slaves. Your bills will go up every day. Your gas, your electricity, your utilities, your car bill, they'll continue going up every day. They call that inflation. And your money, a lot of you out there, your money is actually getting less. Or if you want an increase in your money, you got to increase your production and you got to increase the time you spend at work, right? So you're forever chasing. It's designed for you to be forever chasing. And you know what? A lot of people hasn't realized that. But you get fooled on the other end that you've got a house and the house increases in value. And you believe you're rich. But are you really rich? It was always said from a very long time, everybody's two paychecks away from being on the street. So the gearing or leverage or personal finance, right, has always been bad from 10, 20 years ago. Let's say like from 2008 when we had that economic crash. It's because everybody, well, most people was living on the edge. And one of the biggest cons that came out of it was Bernie Madoff, who gave you the impression he was making money, and all he was doing was collecting the money and just giving it back out. He wasn't actually working it. And when the tide went out, just like this coronavirus, when the tide went out, you realize he wasn't wearing any trunks. And now he's in prison doing time, and probably one or two people like that. But what the government did at that time, it bailed out the banks, and the people had to pay. And we go back to the housing thing. The government is keeping the housing thing high, and all those finance companies and those building companies would get bailout and get good government money, while the people on the streets have to pay. So this increase now in the housing. So you believe you're rich. Now listen, one house is worth one house. Okay, so if you got one house in the city, you sell it, and you move out in the country, right? So you got a little money, but you're still on that same system. So what the government would do is increase your council tax, right? Your bills will go up anyway. You'll buy a bigger car, it's still bigger expenses, so you're still caught up on that treadmill. Now that's for those of you on the upper level. Now they say the recovery is going to be K. The reason why it's going to be K is because the rich will get richer and the poor will get poor. Now because of inflation now, the people at the bottom now can never actually, they never ever could make ends meet. You know, you hear people say, I work 2 and 3 jobs just to stay in the same place, right? So they never could. So as prices increase, their money don't increase, it actually decreases, right? You got this 0-hour working thing, you know, and if they don't like you, you don't get any work. You don't get any work, you don't get any money, you can't pay the bills, right? You're in dire straits, you're out on the streets. And then again, there's the goodness of the charities and good people that keeps you going. It's not government. You see what I'm saying? And here in the UK, from about 10 years ago, when people were hitting the streets and going to food banks, you know, we had government ministers saying, oh, they have a choice of going to the food bank, you know. So we are on the brinks of a kind of actually I wouldn't say apocalypse. I would say it depends on your individual situation. Some of you have always been living in hell, so you will continue living in hell. Some of you who have been okay, right, will find that you're going to be in some trouble. Those of you who have things, you come from a well-to-do, or I don't know what to call it, wealthy, rich, you know, because even wealthy and rich have to sell their estates in order to keep their lifestyle because of increasing prices, maintenance, taxes, payment to staff, wages go up, etc. So I don't know, the money creators, the Googles, the iPhone people, the Amazon people, the owners of industry people, you know, the stock market investors people, you know, they will continue going up, but there's a certain let's say middle class, and I've always heard it in America, the middle classes, we're going for the middle classes. A certain amount of middle class is just gonna their jobs is gonna go, or has gone, and you know, and their jobs has been going. If you go to America, they call it the Rust Belt, you know. I don't believe any of those jobs will return, because the price of labor in the developed world is too high. The amount of money you need to earn in the developed world, in London, Europe, or America, USA, you got North and South America, and you know, the money you need a tremendous amount of money, because it rises because of inflation every year. And so the cost of labor, just basic labor, is too expensive. So those who own the industry actually go to third world country where the labor is cheaper. That is why those jobs is not going to come back to those countries. So politicians actually promising you that jobs are going to come, those old jobs, they won't come. China has about 1.3 billion. India has about 1.3 billion people, and I think 70% of those people is like poor, and probably 50% of those people live on like $1 a day. That's a massive workforce. $1 a day, right? To live on. China and India, certain parts of China and India. In America, how much, the average wage here in the UK is like 100 pounds a day, 80, 100 pounds a day. Now I say that's average. The minimum wage is around 10 pounds an hour. So an average day, let's say if it's 10 hours, 10 times 10 is 100 pounds. In America, it's probably about the same, $100 a day, right? Now you ain't gonna China and India, and if we go to Africa is going to be the next place to be exploited for labor. $1 a day, £1 a day, that's all they need. They're not going to spend £100 a day, right? Look at the profit, 100 to 1, 100 to 1, $100, $1, right? 100 to 1. They're not going to pay you that. The industrialist is not going to pay you that, right? Most of the stuff you're buying is coming from China because it's cheaper and it's good quality, right? A lot of stuff was made in Hong Kong, and then there was a lot of stuff made in Japan, and remember Taiwan went through the whole phase, right? And now it's China. Then still India is part of that. India, and let's say a lot of the Indian folks are highly qualified, very educated. These are folks who are normally doctors. We call them brown folks. They're normally doctors, lawyers, accountants, right? So, so the basic point is those jobs are not going to come back to the first world because it just costs too much. So places like China and India, who are big enough and got the mass of people, if you're an industrialist, that's where you're going to go. And this thing about inflation and borrowing money from the stock market and borrowing money from the financial institution, it's been offered to the third world. So the third world, whether they like it, not a part of that. And what's happening to the third world is that whereas the cost of living used to go up very, very slowly, like probably every 10 years, it's going up as quickly as the first world, because they now linked economically and financially to those kind of systems. And what's keeping us all a slave here in the West is a thing called inflation. And let me kind of reach a kind of conclusion. So the virus has changed the space-time continuum forever around the world, and once the virus is anywhere in the world, it is everywhere in the world. And by the reaction of the government over here of the more stricter lockdown, that helps to add credence to that system. So once the virus is still in the world, it's anywhere in the world. Britain at the moment, UK is the infection rate is on a rise. So it was like in the hundreds, now it's like back up in the thousands. So it's like a fishtail thing. It's beginning to rise, and the death rate is on average is like less than 20. But I think the government actually fear, because of the rise in the infection rate, the death rate is going to go up. So we give that another 15 days, which is going to be like the end of the month. And I don't think that the UK government, or let's say the English government, is going to ease off any more or ease off on any more of the restrictions while the infection rate is actually going up at the moment. And what has happened is that locally, where they have noted that there's a rise in infection, they've come down very heavy and they've locked down, and the lockdown is more heavier than ever than before. The other thing the virus is actually showing is actually all the flaws in the system. If you're on the edge, right, you're falling over, you think. If you've fallen over, you've gone deeper into shit. The government has temporarily subsidized people and businesses, but we have to wait and see what they're going to do next, whether they're going to continue to do that, or they're going to chuck everybody to the elements. But here's what I've realized: it's a worldwide thing. It's a worldwide race. All the countries of the world are actually rushing to get the economy fired up and running, and it might be to the detriment of their population. So we're reaching a point where they're not going to worry so much about the virus anymore. They just want you to go out there and keep on working, keep on earning money, and they'll continue taxing, and the inflationary mechanism will keep you as a slave, and it will keep you never being able to reach, because every time you think you're going to reach, it's gone up, or they've changed the rules. So let me end my podcast today. So it's about 3 a.m. in the morning. It's Monday the 17th. Monday the 17th, August 2020. It's about 6 weeks after the easing of the lockdown. Someplace the lockdown is more stricter now than before. So I'll bid you farewell, and I'll see you on the next webcast.